This is Pam Electric Ghost, and we are live on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch channels with New York City DJ, electronic artist Flowbulous. So welcome to the program.
Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, so what we want to do is be able to, what we do with this show is we've been interviewing artists from around the world since 2018. We used to just be on our audio program on Spotify and Apple, and this still does go to Spotify and Apple after we do the video. As I said, we are live on our YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook channels. And
awesome.
I'd like to give artists a chance to show off their music. In your case, you have a SoundCloud song called Manipulating Frequencies, which we show the link here that we created like a custom link to it, to the full performance, 30-minute one. But we're going to actually do the shorter preview, but we wanted to give people a link to the bigger one.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're actually going to play that, and then we're going to talk about your music and how you got into doing what you're doing today as Flowbulous.
Cool.
We're going to cue this up, and you'll see it showing up right now. Then we're going to mute your mic, and then we'll get into it after. Okay, we'll talk about it.
Can't even function, I can't even be without you. So I'm never and I always be true.
Think love is a game. Think love is a game. I feel amazing. Think love is a game. Think love is a game. Love is a game. I feel amazing. Love is a game. Think,
So that is Flowbulous and manipulating frequencies, and we're back.
Mm.
So we're back here. So we're back on. So I like to be able to give folks, before I talk to the artist, a good picture or musical, like a preview.
I like that a lot. Yeah, exactly. That we get like a right off the bat introduction of like who the person's like. At least not understand. What I mean, get like a good taste of like who the person is. Yeah.
And then the show, since 2018, we weren't able to do that because we were audio only.
Mhm.
The way we were set up is we really couldn't do the songs, and we used to get all kinds of copyright problems if we did it.
Yeah, exactly. That one, luckily though, was like that's why I like that one a lot, and that's why I named it like that, manipulating frequencies, because like that's what like mixing is and like and especially it's you're manipulating frequencies. You're just trying to take out what is needed or put in what's needed, and just like match them around. So most of the time during that mix, there's 4 tracks going on the entire time.
Yeah.
It's like I'm just constantly just like switching out whatever I want out. Yeah, I had a lot of fun during that part. That was
Yeah.
what? Sorry.
No, I think because I'm an electronic musician, but a different type.
Mhm.
Where I'm a synthesist, so I use like analog hardware.
So, yeah, exactly.
So, but what you guys do with the DJ setup, the control systems that you can use, you can kind of do the mixing that we do, because we take sounds from other, like analog synths, and we can
Right.
we take all these things, and we can kind of knock them around and turn them inside out. Take a Moog and I take a sine wave, and then I run it through something where I rip it apart.
Exactly.
You can have a similar effect.
Seriously. Yep. When you're like exactly, then you're making your own. It's like you're remixing the whole time,
Yeah.
And just like making exactly, and just like to just storing it, whatever the hell, stretching it. Oh, I keep hitting this dang headphone, but yeah.
I totally get what you're doing, because the interesting thing is electronic music when it first started.
Mm-hmm.
If people didn't have keyboards, they had the old Moogs in like 1955, 856 in New York City. Robert Moog introduced the Moog, and it was big, gigantic machines, and these like avant-garde artists started saying, what could we do with like sequencers, right?
Right.
Like rudimentary sequencers where they could do things that weren't based on piano boards arrangements, or they were based on alternative sequences and on subharmonics and like
Hmm.
all kinds of multi-rhythmic things or polyrhythmic ideas.
That's
Um,
so cool. And
yeah,
just on the fly stuff. Yeah.
that
And
DJs kind of are you guys are doing what the original electronic music actually started to do.
yep. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. And just continue it in a different way. Seriously. It's like, history repeats itself kind of thing.
Yeah, because they like the real musicians, so-called real musicians that back in the day when they saw the synthesizers, they did the same things that people say that sometimes the DJs, you know,
Mm,
get a guitar player says, "What are you doing?" Right? So
right.
like
Right.
a keyboard player or sax player would look at somebody on a Moog and say, "That's not real music."
Hmm.
And everybody knows that now, the guys who have become like Keith Emersons of the world or Stevie Wonder, everybody knows that synthesizers are real instruments.
Exactly.
Back
Because
then,
it,
though,
because
so
it's what, yeah. And they're doing what I always say. It's like, you're just creating a sound. You're just like fulfilling the sound. You're just fulfilling your desires of what you want to do. And it's like, and we just used to do that with instruments. And now we can do it with, computers or devices.
yeah, I mean, synthesizers are computers.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
So if you
Facts.
were born in Massachusetts, that's
Mhm.
cool. I was born in actual Springfield,
Oh,
Massachusetts,
nice. Yeah. I was born in Worcester.
in the '60s, like '67. So I'm a child
Nice.
of the '70s. Um,
Yeah.
so
That's what's up.
your write up says you're a DJ, a producer. I don't know if this is a typo. It says Glover. Does that mean you're G Lover or what is it?
Glover, yes. That was like, so there's like an art at like music festivals and stuff, and it's like a hand dancing where it's like
Oh, that's the new
where
thing with electronic music. There's
yeah, exactly. And we wear we do yeah, we do moves like that. And we wear just like LED lights on stuff, and you give shows to people. And like it's mostly just like in their face type of atmosphere. And like sometimes we'll have like other Glovers come in too. But there's like a whole community on it too. Like when you see a Glover, you kind of like you just you can kind of easily strike conversations. We'll either trade shows with each other, ask along how long we've been doing it for, and then like other people might come up to us and ask for shows and stuff. It's a whole thing, and I grew into it with my first festival with my friend because he was that's what he did, and I just saw the community in it and like
kind of like
how it
performance.
was. And I just fell in love. Yeah, what?
It's like performance art.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, and it's your self-expression, because like and there's a lot of different flow arts too. There's a lot more like known ones like hula hooping or like poi with like fire poi or like LED poi, and then like hula hooping and like so that's like kind of like the known ones. But this one came on because of like raves or because of like electronic music, and they used to do like some weird stuff, and they were doing some weird like what do you call it? I forgot his name, but they were just doing different like tricks or ways of putting lights on their fingers and giving people shows, when it was like first coming out. Really interesting stuff.
When the Ghost first started and I played in New York, I actually had like LED gloves and I used them on my synth.
Oh,
With
what?
yeah, with my this is kind of my LED face mask.
Okay.
So when I'm the Ghost, I go out right, and then I use the Josephine voice.
Yep.
Josephine Electric. Yeah. But typically I don't want to use that voice if I'm looking like myself. But
True. That's
I
awesome.
have like an LED hoodie and I have LED shoes, I have LED gloves. Back in 2016 when I first did the Ghost, I actually came out with the gloves, but then it's like I started wanting to play better. So it's like
That's
the gloves
awesome.
kind of stopping me from playing my keyboard. So I was like, well, I can't really have art for the sake of art that actually messes up my performance.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you on that because I've tried to do it as well with the gloves on. Yeah, seriously, it can be very distracting.
Yeah, but it actually you couldn't get to manipulate the
You
keys.
can't fit. Yeah, exactly.
Keys
You
were-
just
I was trying to find a glove that would let me do it, and I found a way to cut holes at the tips and still
uh,
have it work. But a lot of
nice.
the designs actually had it so they're like the contacts for the whole mechanism were at the tip. So
Okay,
you
that's
cut
clever.
it off, and it wouldn't work. I had to find a way to kind of jury rig it. One time I got some, and then somebody stole them in New York. I was at a place in New York, and I had the one that
Figures.
actually worked. And then I went I had a roadie who was supposed to be watching my stuff. My
Hmm.
synth didn't get taken, but that got taken. And I was like,
That's
oh
sad.
man.
That's sad.
yeah, you know how it is. But
That's
so
yeah, I do.
so you said you like it heavy, funky, and housey, and you got the vibe. And we're on
Yeah.
Instagram, and we found your SoundCloud, and
Mhm.
so we're actually going to include that link when we put this out, so people
And
can.
it, and I finally figured out, yeah, like I told you too, I finally figured out how to I didn't realize that my mixes weren't downloadable, so finally everyone can finally download them instead of just going to my thing and listening to it. So yeah, download it away. I have a lot out from like kind of like when I was first like getting into it too, and kind of like growing up. And I was just like, I kind of kept the mixes that my friends and stuff would like, and then trying to come out with new ones. Yeah, I've just been busy with so much things, so it's hard to. I'm
Yeah. But it's cool to
trying
have
to get more out there with the promoting. What?
it's cool to have an online presence. You know, a lot of people use SoundCloud. You're on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know,
Exactly.
I found you, and I'm gonna go and kind of walk through what we normally ask people. So I'll get to the first set of questions where we sent you. Is like when you got into music, like at what age did you get into music, and maybe it's like because you're in this very kind of modern type of music, is like when you got into music at an early age, like a lot different than what you do now.
Yeah, so I got into music like pretty early on in my age. Like my I'm not sure who was playing it when I was like 6 or 7, but my dad claims it was my mom, and my mom's not too sure. But I used to listen like they used to listen to Madonna, and so like I got into Madonna or like started listening to that when I was younger, and like a lot of like pop and stuff and like hip hop. But then as I got older, like around like 10 or so, like I was listening to like a lot of heavier stuff because my mom is pretty much like a huge influence on music. Like I was listening to everything that she was listening to, and she listens to just about everything. And so most of her music back then was heavy things, and then just any heavy metal like Disturbed or Metallica.
Okay.
Not too much like scream or anything like that. Just like your casual.
What about like
Um,
you're like
what's up?
more heavy metal than something like Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Exactly. Yeah, all of them. And then as I got older, she started listening to more like Airbnb and a lot of hip hop and rap and stuff, and it kind of that kind of like turned me on to a couple things too. So I was in the middle, like when I was in middle school and high school, I was in the middle of listening to like Linkin Park and like what do you
Okay,
call it, and like Green Day
modern
and
rock,
stuff, but then
like
listening to like
alternative rock,
yeah, but then
alternative rock, indie rock.
but then listening to like Jay-Z and like I remember listen back then like listen like Backstreet Boys and stuff like you know so
It
I
just
was
seems
I
like you're
just
very diverse because being
oh
a
yeah.
DJ, I would think like one thing I think is really cool about DJs or music directors or people into electronic music is
Hmm.
I was actually watching this documentary um, on on some musicians, and
Hmm.
there was a couple producers that had started as DJs, and one thing they pointed out was they could pick up a hit. They know when something's a hit.
What's it? Yeah.
They know the beat, right? They know if something's working because they're
Yep.
in the club and they watch the people. So if you get into production work and you've been a DJ, you know what turns people on. You know what So if you're working with a band, and you say, "Hey, that's not the hook. That's
Yeah,
not."
yeah.
So they
Seriously.
yeah. So if you get into that, having that skill set, you can take it, and like people can could criticize and say, well, you didn't go to Berkeley or whatever, but it's kind of like what you do. Like if you ask the guys at Motown, they didn't go to Berkeley. If you
Yeah,
ask
literally, right
any
though.
any jazz musician, I mean, Hendrix, look at Hendrix.
Hmm.
Hendrix self-taught.
Absolutely. Exactly.
I tell people
That's
it's like you gotta talk about that, like, well, you talk about Jimi Hendrix then. It's not him. He taught himself.
straight up, and because that's what he just dedicated his life in. You can try to go to if you're gonna. That's what it's all about. Just being dedicated to it, and that's why you go to school to. Yeah, seriously, that's why you go to school for it, to be dedicated for it.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like we can just do it on your own.
I think what people do is like if you think about the people I interview
Hmm.
are people like are in the indie alternative college radio kind of world, and
Hmm.
now it's more like the internet, social media world. Is people do this because they love to do it, right? I talk
Exactly.
to bands all over the world, band in
Hmm.
Sweden, band in Iceland, band in Germany, band in Australia. What's in common? They're all trying to do things that they're trying to do it because they love it, right?
Exactly.
whether they're heavy metal or punk or EDM or trance or a DJ
Yeah,
or spoken word artist. It's people just want to get into it because I think if you're a creative person, you feel the need to express yourself,
exactly.
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
So yeah, so I got a huge influence like for a while. And then I was in high school, I was in like concert band. And like I played the baritone for a while, then I played the timpani and for a little bit, and then kind of like picked up drumming, and that's what like really helped me out too, because I was into a lot of I was always into like beats, always into just I can figure out the rhythm of the songs. That's why like gloving came so easily to me too, is because I'm very my musicality is on point. Just because like I just like study music so intensely, and just seeing like how exactly how you're describing it is like how it moves people or how you react to it and everything. And so yeah, so like beats was like a big thing for me, and I picked up drumming from it, and I've been doing that a lot. Well, trying to do it a lot more often. I can kind of consider myself a drummer now because I definitely keep a beat.
so you
And
actually
then
have like a set. You actually
yeah,
play it
I have a
full.
yeah. Well, no, I have like a electronic drum kit, and then like so I'm using that. I'm trying to use that for producing as well too, because I'm trying to make all my stuff like original. I just
Is it
you
like a
know
Roland or a Yamaha? What type you got?
uh is it Alias? Is that how you pronounce
Oh,
it? Because
yeah, there's another
it
one. Yeah.
is yeah, yeah. So someone's again, yeah. Someone was yeah, I scored a good deal on that one.
No, it's actually interesting because like a lot of people, like I grew up in the '80s, right?
Hmm.
Well, I'm a child of the '70s, but the Lynn drum, and then watching Purple Rain, you see the use of electronic drums in the new wave, like in the new wave era, like bands like Duran Duran, Plastic
Hmm.
Eagle, New Order, Joy Division, Cure. They were all using like all types of drum machines and electronic drum setup. So
Yeah.
kind of like the original beginning of that. And I'm a big fan of how when punk music and progressive rock kind of turned into new wave, and
Hmm.
you got the bands like Duran Duran and New Order and Depeche Mode.
And just adding that new feel. Yeah, exactly. That new twist
That is,
to it.
yeah, that's
Hmm.
kind of where I come from as a keyboardist. So
Especially like Pink Floyd and stuff too. Just any like, and when you add that like the mixture the day that they started mixing electronic music and stuff, or like synths and stuff like that with it, it just made it's just they
yeah,
needed
and
that
you got like
extra, those
bands like
extra sounds, the extra texture is what I'm trying to think of.
yeah,
Yeah.
you think about like I'm a real I got Moogs and Yamahas and Rolands, so I kind
Hmm.
of grew up on bands like Yes, Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Pink
Okay.
Floyd, and these are bands that had these big stacks of keyboards. Behind me,
Yeah.
I got my big stack right there. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. On top of everything else.
So what was cool about that era is that people would take a mixture of classical, jazz, and rock
Hmm.
and make these really elaborate electronic music, right?
Yep.
And that kind of what happened with the new wave is that kind of classical rock-driven version of electronic music got mixed in with like what Kraftwerk was doing in Germany with like their kind of early techno, the stuff that Prince kind of took from that German band Kraftwerk.
Right.
Even guys like Brian Eno, as they took the idea of this punk aesthetic mixed with the kind of classical nature of a keyboard because you can
Hmm.
do all these chord structures and you can do all this interesting stuff. And so then you get the new wave, which can kind of go anywhere. New wave bands had a lot of guitar, and people
Yep.
that are all keyboard. Like if you go listen to them, there's a lot of guitar. There's a lot of really funky bass. There's
Hmm.
use of a lot of drum machines, and it kind of is like the birth of this modern electronic music. Because hip hop would go and sample from like punkadelic, which was kind of like a progressive funk band that was using similar capabilities like Pink Floyd, but they were like a psychedelic African American like psychedelic
Yeah. I'm
band.
like, I like that vibe a lot.
You think about it, like early hip hop is heavily sampled James Brown and Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
That's what it is, and it's all those grooves from those funk bands.
Hmm.
And then those funk bands, then they started to add like the 808 and the 727 and the 909 rolling drum machines with the
Yep.
synth, and then that creates kind of like the modern world that everybody goes and okay, well, take an 808 or take a 909 or a 727 or any of those
Hmm.
drum machines, are kind of like the base of all like electronic music today. They use some
Absolutely. And they were
very
saying exactly all the electronic, all the producers and stuff. They were just sampling all that,
yeah.
and then they were just like sampling from all each other too, and then and just stemming from each other until yeah.
And I think
Until
what's
it just
cool
it
today is
consumed.
when you mix like jazz with hip hop, or you take like rock with hip hop, or you take country with hip hop, or you take and then you take the electronic and you mix it all up, and it's kind of like going to New Orleans and having some gumbo, like electronic gumbo,
True. I was gonna. You can do it correctly though. As long that's the thing too about like what we were talking about before. It's like having a good ear for music and stuff because you can do that type of stuff. That's why. That's what I like doing especially is mixing the random ones that you don't think that are gonna work and it meshes well. Like there's these two artists like his name's Pretty Lights and he's kind of like a lot of like he's very like hip hoppy and like break beats and like old like he puts like in these old
old records from the
like
70s.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Do you know what Pretty Lights is?
I haven't really heard that, but I've kind of heard guys like I like MF Doom.
I was gonna
And
say 'cause you nailed them on the dot. Hold on, real quick though, and then but then you have like this guy like Tipper, and he has like in like this he's heavy and electronic, and like it's really like these trippy like sounds and stuff, and then and you wouldn't think they would go together, and I just like put them together, and it just sounds crisp. And yeah, sorry, like that.
yeah, I think it's like the cross genre.
Other people out there, if they hear me, they'll understand why it's hard to put relation.
It's cool to take like I'm a big fan of like dissonance of like
Okay.
punk rock bands, right? You think about like Clash, you think about like the Ramones, and Who's to Do's, and they got all these like heavy punk rock bands, right? And sometimes they were doing very discordant things, right? And it's like, okay, well, that's not exactly melodic. But what's cool is when you take something like take like what Trent Reznor does. Trent Reznor uses noise a lot in Nine Inch Nails, but it's not just noise. There are choices in terms of like chord structures and things that are not just noise. There's like choices that are very musical or kind of anti-music, but it's like it's real well thought out, like a producer like a Brian Eno. And so what I like is like if you think about it, a guy like Brian Eno used to work with Bowie, and he'd go up on the chalkboard with a bunch of producers and start putting up all kinds of dissonant chord arrangements. And the studio musicians would be like, that doesn't even work.
Dude, that's
and that's
yep.
exactly what you want to do.
Exactly. My friend Chris and I, that's what we would do. He would we were like coming up and that's funny too because we were actually working on a track like that as well. When we just sat down, he told me to pick 7 random chords and I just picked like random the random 7 and he just arranged it in an order and then he just played it and it sounded great. And we started a track from it. My friend started rapping over it. It was great.
Back in the day before
Yeah.
producer would go on the chalkboard with studio
And
musicians and they tell them to do that. Guys like guys that did that kind of thing. You got the famous guys like the Wall of Sound, like the great producers would figure it out. You got guys like Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson was like known for kind of messing it up. Like
and that's how
orchestra
right.
and they say, no, do this arrangement, and they'd be like, no, you shouldn't do that. It's like, no,
that's
kind of break the rule a little bit because I hear it. Like I hear the what would happen with the great guys is they hear the shadow track that nobody else hears. They kind of know how to construct things and they kind of see it ahead of other people, and other people look at it and they don't see how that could work. But it's like a great painter. They're doing these layers and you might not understand what they're doing until they get to the end.
the full bit, yeah, but it's so necessary though because that's how you figure out things too, and that's how music keeps expanding, and that's how that's the only way. If you keep stagnant, that's just how we're gonna be.
I like what you did in that track because you went like in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
A lot of cool. I can see a lot of influences, and being like a synth guy, like a new wave guy, I heard some stuff in there that was kind of very progressive.
And it's
was pretty cool. And then I heard like all kinds of alternative rhythms, like that were like kind of exotic from other countries.
Yeah, and just hitting those
Arabic tones or things.
Yep, and that's what I really like about electronic music specifically is the fact that you can you can hit certain notes or certain keys, and or sounds will come out and they just make you feel a certain way. Like a lot of the times I'm DJing, especially that one part too, when I was making that part, I was actually tearing up and like crying as I was like mixing it, just because it was so damn beautiful, and like I'm just like kind of what's that? What?
But you kind of find a flow that like
It just works. Yeah,
like
exactly.
like if you think about a jazz musician, sometimes like when they get into their kind of, you get into a jazz piece and then you go off and you do your solos, you do your kind of improvisation, but then you go back to the core, right?
Yep.
A lot of
Yep.
jazz, they have their ability, kind of like DJs, that they have a core structure and then they go off and they come back and they
It
go
kind
on.
of bring it back. Yep.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
causes.
I've been doing that for years, you know.
Yeah. Yep. Because it creates those moments of freedom, space, of or of craziness. You know what I mean? Of a lot of intense motions come out of that. Out of those waves, and then when you bring it back together, sometimes things don't go back together completely, or sometimes they just mesh together, you know what I mean? But sometimes it's on purpose, until you reach like a certain end. Yeah, it's so much fun.
I like the idea of the polyrhythmic stuff that you guys do. Like a lot of like synthesis or modular synthesizers, we have all these clocks on all of our synths, right? So some of them are running on all these different timings.
Keeping time, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to when you guys are mixing like a track that might be in a different time.
I really like that. No, exactly. Yep. So you're right.
You have a Moog that's running like a certain beat at a certain time, but then I got you're running something else, and then I could kind of sync the clock, or I can kind of off sync it.
That is sick.
I can have like a LFO or an envelope trigger another synth, and
that
will come in at different timing.
Yep.
And it becomes like polyrhythmic, and I can do subharmonics, and so those type of things are like very similar, I think, to what you guys do.
I gotta get me into that. I gotta check that out. Yeah.
There's a lot of cool things you can do if you take an analog synthesizer, you take the envelope and you have it trigger another envelope, or you take a clock and have it trigger like another oscillator. It's very random, but you can learn how it actually will work.
And the fact,
yeah, enough, So I kind of, when I perform like a DJ with my analog, doing all this stuff and knowing that my Moog, if I do a certain thing, it's gonna maybe make something similar to a portamento type drop.
Right.
Or it's gonna go and do some crazy upper register thing, or it's gonna do his crazy white noise or pink noise or blue noise. I kind of know what it's gonna do, and then I can trigger different things to happen.
That's really cool. And the fact that you're doing it too is you're doing it live too. All the editing, all the just live. That is sick.
Because it feels cool when you're doing that. I think it must feel like cool when you're doing a live performance. You have like what you did as your track, but when you go do it live, you're doing a lot of like improvisation, right?
Yeah. Every mix I do is that I prepare. When I mean prepare, I like quote unquote prepare, because I don't even actually prepare sometimes. I try like the first couple tracks or so, or the first three, kind of like see where the vibe's at, see where I want to go into, and the rest is improv. Yeah, the rest is improv the entire time. All the mixes on SoundCloud, all improv. When you see me, it's all improv. It's just what is, you know what I mean? What I have present, what I put out there in that moment. And that's because that's what I find like more like just like special, instead of it. Because there's a lot of DJs out there, especially when they're mixing on especially when it comes to like the big and they're on like CDJs and stuff, and they're over here. Half of them are even like DJing out there. They just got these presets, and I see it in person, and you just like, you don't say anything, you just let it pass.
I would say like being a musician.
Yeah.
The guy with this rig, and then I never see him touching it.
Yeah, it's just.
And I'm kind of like, is the performance more the lights, or because it seems like you just kind of phoning it in, using the lasers, and I think that's cool. Like if people just want to hear something that's pre-recorded, that's fine. But I kind of like to see guys like you that actually touch your gear and manipulate what you're doing. So I actually. If I go see you one night, it's not the same as I saw you the other night.
It'll never be the same, exactly. And that's why. And you're really inspiring me with the analog stuff too. Because then if I could figure out how to do that, like with both, man, like I can just imagine a couple years from now, just like the live set just being, and not just like the board, but like all the shit behind me and stuff, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is going
Kinda think
on?"
about, like, a guy like Keith Emerson. I don't know if they ever call you Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but he used to come to New York City with this massive Moog called a 55 with this big wall of
Hmm.
all this synthesizer stuff, and there's all these wires hooked up. And he was like pretty much one guy with a drummer and maybe a guitar player. And it was like the show was the fact that he was manipulating this
Dude,
big
yeah.
machine and
Hmm.
get all this crazy sound out of it. And it was kind of changed. Kind of think about like a synthesis like Pete Townsend, unlike
Hmm.
Barbara O'Reilly or Won't Get Fooled Again. I mean, you hear those songs, right?
Right.
The Pete Townsend's kind of like an unknown synthesizer player because if you listen to Barbara O'Reilly or Won't Get Fooled Again
Hmm.
or like Who Are You? Those are rock songs, but there's heavy synthesizers in them.
Hmm.
And their synthesizers are kind of the Townsend form of synthesis is this kind of ramped up and down weird kind of what they call like blips and bops. They kind of bop around.
Okay.
And you hear this kind of thing. And Barbara O'Reilly's probably the most famous one where you hear this kind of this rotating note going like ramping up and down all the time. You know, if you ever heard it. It's like
Right.
song Teenage Wasteland.
Okay.
Yeah, if you ever heard that, it's because synthesizers can do this kind of weird random what they call random voltage generators. And random voltage generators can trigger random events on your oscillator, which make you have this strange beat that you can keep it in a certain timing.
Interesting.
And then you can have this kind of ramped up backing track that a
Yep.
lot
Yep.
of 70s like synth bands and new wave bands and
And then you just go
have this stuff going on.
right, and then you just go off, and you just go off that, and
Yeah,
exactly that
kinda
extra
like a drum
texture,
machine, kinda
extra
like a drum
texture.
yeah, you can tie drum machines to it.
To it, exactly. Yes, that's true. I was just, yeah, right.
So it's kind of a cool technique is like you can take that and then tie it as a click track to trigger like an 808
Hmm.
to kind of be running off of like every random voltage generator and say, okay, I want you to do a kick on every fourth beat. Or
I was about to say, yep, exactly.
you know,
Hmm.
and then
Use them for cues.
yeah, you can use them like cues, and then you can come in. And then the cool thing is that you can just F it up. You can just change it.
Hmm.
You know, I just have tons of pedals that trigger all kinds of LFOs and envelopes, and I can just kick them off. It's kind of like when you're on
Oh,
your board kicking
oh, you
stuff
have
off.
it right in your feet.
Yeah, foot pedals are kicking off random voltage because you can do controlled voltage off of foot pedals, and you
Okay.
can do other things. I have these controllers that have all kinds of like lights on them, but they're basically like MIDI controllers, but they're controlling synths. And it's kind of like having your
Interesting.
board like on a CDJ with the buttons, like a pad,
Yep.
and you can trigger things from the pad. And so
Can
it's
you?
like you can do all kinds of.
And you said you can also set those up for visuals too.
Oh yeah, you can tie light shows to follow your MIDI control information or your CV information. So
From
you
your
can actually,
foot.
yeah, you can have like your controlled voltage trigger MIDI and MIDI control voltage, and if it controls MIDI, if you can take an analog signal and turn it into,
Yep.
then you can turn it into things that can
To
trigger.
distort, dude. Okay.
So you
This
can
is
do all kinds
good.
of weirdness. So you can have random voltage generators triggering all kinds of digital displays of art and
On
light.
certain, yeah, in certain points of the mix on heavy, dude, this
But
is
it would be
juicy
in sync
stuff.
with what you're doing. What's cool
Hmm.
about it would be rhythmically in sync with what you're doing. It would match the vibe of the song. So
Which makes it that more spectacular.
yeah, it would look
Yeah.
very cool, and it could look different all the time. It could
Hmm.
look as different as what you're playing.
100%. Depending on how, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a cool thing to do, and it kind of goes back to like Andy Warhol art he used to do with the Velvets. Is he used to do these big happenings where he had the Velvet Underground, Lou Reed's band, and then
Hmm.
all this weird art on screens, on visual screens. He'd do all this avant-garde art, and he'd have like actors, and he'd
Oh,
have like models, and they would just do these shows. And it's
that's
very kind of like what you
awesome.
see at the EDM stuff now.
Hmm.
Like Warhol and Lou Reed were doing that stuff in like 64, 66.
True. Oh, we gotta bring that. They'll be back. We gotta bring. I'm bringing
Yeah,
that back around.
bring it
We
back.
yeah, we need more of that. Like, what are we doing?
Do it. 'Cause that's the kind of cool stuff. That's the stuff,
Yeah.
to me because like
It makes me not want to talk about it too much. I want to give people ideas, you know.
I got tons of ideas.
I know. I'm just playing.
But you know what I mean? It's like, I think what's cool about electronic music, it's like always on the cutting edge, you
Mm,
know. And it's a lot of
exactly.
people can think that you can go punk, you can go classical, you could go rock, you
Yeah.
know. You
Under
can go whatever way you want.
whatever, ever. Yeah. Yep. And it's
So you're
funny
not
too.
stuck.
Yep. Someone told. So I heard one, like someone was trying to predict that electronic music was gonna die, and I thought about that for a sec. I was like, yeah, you know, because like with live instruments kind of like being a thing now with like COVID and stuff like that. But no, it's constantly evolving.
It never
It's
dies 'cause
yeah, it would because it's already yeah, it's already
some of the synthesizers that were first built are from like the 20s.
seriously.
There are
It's
some
just
like the Tritonium and stuff were like from the 30s and the 40s. So
yeah.
the idea of electronic music was like in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
You had like stuff like the Tritonium and all these other things, and then you got Moog in the 50s, and then Buchla out of California in the 70s. And
Wow.
you got Roland, and you got Prophet. You got all these big guys who figured out. Dave Smith Instruments created the Prophet 5, and they
Yep.
still do all kinds of cool stuff. And basically all the sound design, it never stopped. So
Yep.
people are today into modern synth, like granular synthesis
Mm-hmm.
and field recording. And so you
Yep.
take field recording and then you spread it out on a synthesizer, and you can take anything you record and it can become a chord across the whole range of the keyboard. And
Oh,
it
nice.
actually can play the found sound.
On it, yeah, on it. Interesting.
Yeah. And
Just
there's
like
a lot
that.
of really experimental stuff you can do with that.
No, absolutely. I was gonna say because it's kind of like the machine, like the machine does that, or like or I mean like, or if you're trying, well, I mean you could do it like individually, but the machine is has a keyboard where you can take like what is it, like either like preset samples or sounds and just load it right onto the keyboard, and it's the same thing that you talked about, but just like software instead of
Yeah, some people like to
yeah.
make a field recording be very specific.
Mhm.
So they get some weird sound. They go out to the subway station and
It-
tape it down to the subway.
Yep.
And then try to get it actually to be a sound they can manipulate totally on the synth, not just as a sample clip,
Right.
something they can actually play the whole length of the keyboard.
That's hilarious.
And then you can actually have it like a Pink Floyd album. If you think about what Pink Floyd used to do, all these weird samples and field recordings, and they're on like Dark Side of the Moon and stuff like that. But,
True.
yeah, I mean, I kind of go back and then I go forward.
Yeah, no, right? Seriously though. Oh man, and like it's making my brain go wild. I love it. This is great.
That's why people don't realize when they say
There's so much experimentation. What? Yeah, no, exactly.
It's gonna die. Is like, what do people stop listening to Pink Floyd?
I know, right? Yeah, right.
Do people even they don't. People
No.
Bowie, right? If you listen to Ziggy Stardust,
Mhm.
or listen to Fame, or listen to Let's Dance, I mean, you're gonna people go back and they listen to Duran Duran. They listen to like Stevie Wonder, like on songs like Key on the Life, something like a song like Saturn or Village Ghettoland.
Yep,
Right?
exactly.
Those are synthesizer songs.
Mhm.
Village Ghettoland is this Yamaha Dream Machine, and I'm actually going to have a guy to help design the DX7 on June 11th, like the Yamaha GX7 synth, which is a famous synth that was in the 80s, used by like Don Henley and all these other big acts.
That's what's up.
He's going to be on the show. We're going to talk some synth history, because the interesting
Oh,
thing about
nice.
history is people are still using these instruments. People still use Jupiter 8s. They still use DX7s. They use Moogs.
Yep. So that's what I was gonna say. It's not, it's just gonna evolve, and I feel it's gonna become way more experimental than what it has been. You know what I mean? I feel like there's gonna be a lot of experimentation going on again, because it kind of like has to. We're kind of like reaching the point where it's like, why are we mixing orchestral things and jazz? It's like because we need to. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like we need to start doing a lot more experimenting and figuring things out, like especially using like mixing and then using patch cables on top of it. Like that stuff's so cool.
Yeah, I've actually seen a lot of like in Berlin and in like places like Iceland and
Mm.
Norway and the Netherlands. There's a lot of experimental musicians there mixing like visual with
That yeah. With,
analog, with
yep.
samples, with DJ stuff, and
Hmm.
you've got a lot of hybrid, really kind of Bjork level stuff going on. You know,
Exactly.
very very experimental stuff, and it's maybe not mainstream, but you know, every once in a while you do get a Bjork, you do get a
Hmm.
Kate Bush, you do
Right.
get like a Brian Eno. They come out because like sometimes it's like unstoppable. It's like somebody comes out with such a unique sound.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter
So.
if it comes from Sweden or Norway or anywhere. Just
Mhm.
get into it.
So then I think what is gonna die is DJing, and what I think, like as far as like DJing dying, is like it's not gonna die. It's gonna take a little bit, but as far as like just going up there with the board, you know what I mean? I feel like
Yeah,
that's gonna die. I feel like
maybe if you phone it in, you're not gonna do well.
yeah, exactly. You'd at this point, you know what I mean? You have to. It's like you're in it or you're not, you know, and it's not even a
You gotta
difficult
have some
thing
talent.
because if you're, that's what I mean exactly. That's all it is. That's all the difference is between people. It's just a passion and like a passion for it.
There's no guys on vinyl DJs, right? The guys who
Mhm.
did vinyl um, disc jockeys, right? They came up with the early rap.
Mhm.
The thing about the vinyl is you actually had to touch it. You had to, you know what I mean? You're a DJ using vinyl. The whole skill was that you
The
actually
whole do it.
play it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You weren't
Yeah,
using computers to try to not play it
you know, to do everything else. Yeah.
to do it. And I understand computers can help you,
Mhm.
but when you let them help you 99%,
Yeah.
then maybe that's a little too much help. Because
Hmm.
as a musician, the whole point of being a musician is like when I went to see like the Allman Brothers, I saw them because every night they sound different. If I saw Pearl Jam, every night they sound different. If I
Yep.
went to see Parliament Funkadelic, as a music fan, I want to see bands that every night. If I go for 3 nights in a row
Hmm.
to the same band, I'm not seeing the same show every night.
Exactly. And
That's
that's what
kind of what you're
and
doing.
that's yeah, and that's seriously because because I couldn't stand when I would go to festivals and you're there for like 3 days and the two artists is up there you know like twice or three times and he plays the same set either you know back to back and you know both nights or he play the every other and like you're just sitting there you're like shaking your head and everyone there is having a great time you're like
Well, some people don't get into the details like
oh,
you.
we're losing
Yeah, you know,
it.
maybe you're inebriated and you just hear the beat
Yeah,
and hear. I mean, some people are in terms of music fans, they don't know the lyrics. They don't really care as long as it has the beat, and if they hear that beat 1,000 times, it doesn't matter.
that's
And
true.
like, then
That's a big
you get fans that are more kind of precise. They're like, I actually want to hear like something like
yeah,
you know.
exactly. That's so true. Which is like kind of like skews everything too, because like excuse like what I just said, because I know that like DJing is gonna be around for a while. Like it won't. I'm not saying it's gonna die like instantly like that, or, like in a couple years or so.
Yeah,
But
I
like
think
I
they
feel like, but I feel like in order for us like you know I don't know I feel like for that electronic music or something to like you know evolve or something to expand. You know what I mean? It's got to get past that point. It's got to get
But then
past the
you end up
point.
being the crowd. Do you have the dance crowd or do you have the crowd that's into like hipsters, right? Or the
Right.
crowd that wants to actually be in the underground
Be the
scene,
whole
right?
thing. Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, like I like to go play like go to Berlin because
Hmm.
it's real heavy underground creative scene that's doing cutting edge stuff,
Yeah.
right? If I
Right.
want to go to some place and just dance, I could go to some club in London or something or some place in LA, you know,
Right.
that's just for that. And that's
Mm.
cool. And you take your girlfriend out, your boyfriend out, whatever.
It's
You know,
fun,
have
you
a
know.
good time.
It's yeah.
But if
It's
you're out there, you're trying to get like vibe to like a Grateful Dead, right?
mhm.
A Deadhead went to see the Dead because they play 6 hours just jamming out.
Yeah.
You know, they just jamming out. It's like he would, you know, like go see Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa, his band would just go crazy and do all this crazy stuff. That's what people want to see that because that's
Ex-
what they want to see,
ah.
you know.
Yeah, exact dude. Frank Zappa, exactly.
If you know anything with
Exactly.
Zappa's just wholly he's a good example
Oh,
of like where
He's
things are going because
he's everything. Yeah.
everything. He was doing classical, he's doing jazz, he's doing rock, he's doing
He
humor.
was comical. I know. He was weird.
Yeah,
But he was on point.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Exactly.
we actually have reached the end. We can only go like an hour.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But it really went really well, and I'd like to have you come on again, and you actually are.
Same here. Same here.
You're going to be on the show we're doing on July 16th
Mm,
through 18th. So we will see
absolutely.
you again shortly, and then as you get into stuff, and maybe you want to get into that modular stuff, I can kind of help you with that because I'm into
No, please, please, because I'm getting, especially since I'm getting a lot more into it too, a lot more comfortable with it too, and understanding things as well. I've been learning a lot about like how to like set up sound systems and everything like that, and like with helping Kendra out playing live and stuff. It's like I'm able to just learn a lot, like on the go, and just practice myself. So like yeah, it's like all the like knobs and levels and everything like that is just so becoming so much easier to me, and now which makes it easier for producing too, and like for say for mastering tracks and stuff too. All the different audio effects and different like things you like, things that would make your head explode now just excite me, and I'm like, because I understand it now. Yeah, no, the future is gonna be like woo.
Oh, I hate to cut you off, but yeah,
No worries.
have out here. Well, this is going to be out there permanently on my YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram channels. We will send you the
Awesome.
Spotify and Apple podcast links. We are actually going to be on 11 podcast platforms within an hour.
Okay.
The audio only version. And so you'll get the top 3. You'll get the Spotify and the Apple and also the Anchor FM. So
Cool.
yeah, look forward to. We will be pushing this episode on our channel on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, look forward to our pushing that within the next hour.
Cool beans. Cool beans.
We'll talk to you again.
Awesome. Seriously, yeah.
Yeah,
Pleasure. Always a pleasure.
We talking to Kendra on Friday.
Wait, what's that?
We're talking to Kendra on Friday.
Okay, yeah. Well, you said push that out.
Yeah, we'll push. And
You said you'll push it out. Okay. Yeah, true.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm putting a shout out to Emerald Sound and Kendra Black.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I'll talk to you guys before the show in July, and yeah, we can talk about anything you want to get into off this.
Okay. Yeah. True. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you for being on. Everybody,
Thank
go
you.
check out the link here. This is on his SoundCloud, and yeah, and we also have your Instagram link. So if you start putting up other stuff, people can check it out.
Bye, guys.